Hi there, my name is Fix Fox and welcome back to Factorio. Folks, this is going to be the Lazy Bastard Deathworld run, otherwise affectionately known as the Lazy Deathworld, and this is my favorite playthrough so far in the series, and it's because, well, I mean, it's not because things go well. In fact, it's because things go horribly bad, and I hope that you're going to see what happens and you're going to say, oh yeah, that is a good moment there. Not because things went well, but because they went bad. This belt here is going to supply red ammunition to the exterior belts. Now all of our gun turrets should be well stocked and supplied, and all of our flamethrower turrets now have the heavy oil in there for themselves. Folks, we're going to start off by getting ourselves some of the production science pack going here, affectionately known as the purple science. Now at this point, I gotta tell you, I would like to say that we build everything not only to scale, but also to ratio. And when I say that, what I mean is, if we're talking about scale, you say to yourself, well, I have this goal, I want to make 100 science per minute, and then you build up to that scale. And then ratio being, well, I want to make sure that if I need to make 100 science per minute, that I have enough of the buildings prior to that. The assemblers for the rails are adequately supplying the amount of assemblers that it takes to make the purple science. It'd be a lie. Folks, it would be dishonest if I said that we are going to do a lot of ratio or scale building at this current juncture. That's not why I'm playing Factorio at this current moment. We are trying to survive. And when we're trying to survive, we don't have time to make sure that everything is built well. And by the way, up to this point, if now all of a sudden we decided to build everything to ratio and scale, that would just look weird with everything else that's totally not built to ratio and scale. So we are getting our rails here. We are also getting our electronic furnaces that are going to go into this purple production science. And now we have green and red chips that are needed to make the production modules. So we've got an awful long way to go here, because this little trickle here, which we were so proud of just a few episodes, is not going to cut it. We're going to start off here by getting some more green chips, and then we're going to talk about scaling up our red chips. Here's the problem I have, though. In Factorio Space Age, there's a planet known as Fulgora. Fulgora is a nice place to go. I highly recommend that you go and pay it a visit when you get the chance, because amongst the ruins of the Fulgoran planet, there is the ability to make yourself a new, wonderful, technologically advanced way of getting lots of circuits, green, red, and beyond. And it really makes some of the late game scaling that we used to do for Factorio kind of superfluous. And so it makes you kind of question, do I want to build lots and lots of rows of assemblers now, knowing that they're all going to be replaced fairly quickly? Or do I just have a trickle of science and have a trickle of circuits and hope that that's enough? The answer is, well, we're still going to have to build quite a bit, and then we're just going to have to upgrade and tear all this down later. So do not get too attached to anything that you see here so far. So we are going to have an additional 8 assemblers that are going strictly into the green circuits. We're going to bring up a dedicated line. It's only a yellow belt, but a dedicated line of iron to supply those chips. And then right above that, we're going to be building our red circuits. And then right above that, not too far later in the future, we're also going to be building our blue chips as well. So lots to be done, and lots going to be happening with the chips. By the way, so once we get the green chips and the red chips up, that's going to get us into our modules so we can get the production science packs going. I have to tell you that I really, really love that all of the different science packs in Factorio, the recipes make sense, right? Like the automation science pack, you know, the red science, that just takes some copper plates and some gear wheels. You know, you got to smelt the copper plates, you got to make the gear wheels. And so it really fits the theming, and it fits really, really well. Logistics science packs, you got to get the belts, you got to get the inserters. That works, right? Military, well, of course, you got to get walls and ammo and grenades. And then chemical science pack, yeah, you got to get yourself some sulfur, some engines, and some red circuits. And now with the production science being created here with the rails and the electric miners, or rather the electric smelters, and the production modules, it just feels very, very fitting. And with that, it means that it's time for us to upgrade our lab setup. We're going to upgrade this at least one more time. We're going to move this further out. Well, we're going to upgrade this at least 2 more times, probably, once we get some bio labs in the far future. But in the meantime, I really like this ideal design, where you just kind of do a little bit of belt weaving. We already talked in the previous episode about the yellow belts and the red belts operating independently of each other, even if they are occupying the same underground space. It doesn't have to make sense. It just has to work. That's just the way that the game is coded, and that works well for me. But now we have increased the throughput of sciences that we can take in our labs up from 4 all the way up to, what, I mean, 8, really. Yeah, it's 8 now that I think about it. Holy kittens. And the reason being is because now you have multiple belts with 2 sides. So, 4 belts, 2 sides each. That's where we're at. And now I'm starting to spy out some of the different productions I'm going to want to use at some point. Bots are going to be chief among them. And we immediately run into the part of this playthrough that is going to be the outline for my favorite part. Folks, this exterior base is all of the iron production that I have. And we have not built adequate defenses. Now at this point, I don't realize that there's a problem. Like, I understand, like, oh yeah, this is not good. Like, sure, this is totally not good, but I don't realize how big of a pickle I am currently in. Because I think to myself, well, I'm just gonna start to, kill a couple of enemies wherever I can. I'm also going to build up while I can. And surely the enemies are not gonna come so fast and so thick that I can't meet all of my goals here. And we're going to see that I'm going to get absolutely overrun. I'm not going to be able to build up adequate defenses in time to prevent major losses. Now, this wall here, sure, it's a not too big of a fancy thing. It's going to do the very, very best we can in the meantime, but it's really not the play. It's just going to be the start of something wonderful. And then I say to myself, oh, well, I better go kill these enemies before something bad happens. And then amidst the struggle of trying to kill these enemies, about 13 hours into this playthrough, I go down and I say to myself, look, I could try and load the game, which is kind of the coward's way out. If we're going to be doing an actual death world, we need to go and collect our corpse. And so I say, well, let's get ourselves some grenades and some red ammo. Let's get just enough that we can go and defeat these big, ugly worms. And in fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a couple of these poison capsules so that way I can just firebomb their base and run through and yada, yada, yada. Okay. This is a delay. This has put me a little bit further behind than I would like, but it's all going to be fine. And right about here, I realize, hold on, without a tank and without some major tech, I can't even tickle these blue biters. What am I doing? It's at this point that I realize how far I am behind in this military arms race against these biters. Like, this is a fight for our lives here, for my life and their life. I mean, everybody's fighting for everything they've got. I'm popping this guy with a pistol. Yes, the pistol of shame, in fact. And I say to myself, nope, I better go back. I better go get some additional materials because there's no way I can clear out this little bit of worms that has my nearby base. I've got to get some additional help. And all the meanwhile, enemy biters are sniffing the pollution, and they're going to be heading right for all of those electric miners that are behind that half-baked wall. Look at this. I can't even get by these guys. My corpse is right there. This big ball of biters. I say to myself, oh, I'm going to be clever. I'm just going to go around. I'm just going to sneak around. No problems. And if I can just get my corpse now, just a couple minutes after all this has happened, I just got to kill this one thing and I'll be fine, and everything I can save it. It can be salvaged. Folks, what am I doing? No, it's so bad. But I said to myself, look, we have to respawn, right? Now, the only solace I take is that this one worm does go down, which is nice, right? Like, at least there's only one worm guarding this little area, but that still is one worm on my corpse, and there's big balls of death coming my way. Folks, I don't have the means to go pick up 2 corpses and still survive. So at this point, I think I've got myself a tank. No, I have not. I've not even got myself a tank. I just say, look, it's time to do an evac. It is time at this point to strategically retreat and not stick around for too long. It's going to take me a little bit of time to pick all this up, at least the most important bits of this technology. And then other than that, it's just not worth the losses and the struggle I would take. Enemies are currently chewing on my wall at the far east. That means I've got only a little bit of time to evacuate as many of these resources as possible. Will we do so before the enemies come and kill us? I don't quite know, but I do know that this is not a position where I would want my worst enemy to be. But all the same, we're going to get out and say to ourselves, look, let's focus. Don't panic. Because if you panic, bad things happen. That's what happened last time. Let's get ourselves a tank. Let's do this right. And let's hope that our corpse does not disappear. I think that that's possible, folks. I don't know the exact mechanics of it, but I do believe that if your character dies at some point and then you just don't go and like pick it up, eventually it just disappears and all of the equipment that you had with it is gone. So at this point, I'm like, okay, is it 10 minutes? Is it 15 minutes? All I can say is that there's not a whole ton of time left for either of those situations. I hop out of the tank, I pick up the first corpse I possibly can over here. Yes, this was my one, and all of my belts, all of my bots, all of my everything's here. I'm grateful to have it, but geez, this is what you call a bit of a mistake. Now, again, though, we are playing the Death World in the most correct way. We've picked up all these materials, all these stuff, all these resources, and it forced us to play in a way that we typically would consider suboptimal. It's not a great idea to pick up all of your iron ore, but I'm kind of glad we did, just so that way we can plan our next bet. But in the meantime, we're going to be absolutely starved. Whenever the ore on this belt runs out, you are out. And so we got to be very, very careful, cutting production where it's not needed, and then we'll figure it out from there. So with that being said, we are going to need to plan a triumphant return, but next time we go out to the Eastern Iron Ore Patch, we are not just going to want to, we are going to need to make sure we have adequate defenses, so that way nothing bad like this ever happens again. So folks, we are battered, we are beaten, we are bruised, we are hidden behind the wall, licking our wounds, and the enemies still will filter through the trees to come and collect us if they can possibly do so, but it's our means to not do so. And so with that being said, we picked up purple science, we had some shenanigans, and this was a fun one. And with that, I will see you in the next one. My name is Fix Fox. Take good care. Bye now.